Every time you turn that key in your car, your truck, or fire up any piece of heavy machinery, there's this silent battle that starts. It's an invisible fight against friction, heat, and wear that's slowly but surely degrading your engine's performance. But what if you could give your engine a secret weapon, an unfair advantage in that fight? Well, today, we're going to dig into a concentrated oil additive that claims to do exactly that.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to pinpoint the real enemy inside your engine. Then we'll dive into the science of how this protection actually works. We'll see it put through a pretty brutal test, hear from folks who've been using it for decades, and then wrap up with how to use it the right way to get the best results.
So inside any engine, you've got all these metal surfaces just grinding against each other at incredible speeds. Now, your standard oil does a pretty good job, don't get me wrong, but under really high pressure and intense heat, that thin film of oil can break down. And when it does, you get friction and wear. And that's what robs you of power, hurts your fuel economy, and ultimately shortens the life of your entire vehicle. See, this isn't just about getting a little more performance, it's really about prevention. I mean, just think about the cost and the headache of a major engine repair. So the real question is, can an additive actually change the way your engine defends itself from the inside out? And that brings us right to the heart of this explainer, a product called MBL8. Now, this isn't just another oil thickener or a basic additive. It's a concentrated treatment that takes a totally different angle on lubrication and protection. So let's get into how it actually works. The secret is right there in the name, metal-based lubricant. So instead of just relying on a fluid film of oil, MBL8 actually introduces these microscopic, soft metal particles right into your oil system. You can almost think of it like reinforcing your oil with this little army of tiny mechanical helpers.
Okay, this is the really cool part. These little particles work in three totally distinct ways. First, they act like millions of tiny ball bearings, just rolling between the metal surfaces to slash friction. Second, they have a filling action, where they find all the little microscopic pits and scratches that exist on any metal surface and fill them in, making it smoother. And finally, and this is the real game changer, they have a plating action. Under heat and pressure, they actually bond to worn areas, essentially rebuilding and repairing the surface on a microscopic level.
Now, that all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But what happens when you put it under some serious real-world pressure? Well, for that, we head to the lab for some hard evidence. We're about to see a head-to-head friction test that shows you plain as day the difference this stuff can make.
So the setup is simple, but it is absolutely brutal. You have a hardened steel wheel spinning in a bath of high-quality engine oil, and then a pressure arm is slowly lowered onto it, trying to make it stop, trying to make it seize. First, they run the test with just the standard oil. Then they do the exact same test, but this time they add a little bit of MBL8 to that very same oil. And boom, here are the results. It's not even close. The standard oil, it gives up. The machine seizes at about 60 foot-pounds of pressure. But with MBL8 added, the machine takes every bit of pressure the rig can throw at it, 150 foot-pounds, and it just keeps running smooth. It never seized. I mean, that is a monstrous increase in protection when things get serious.
A lab test is one thing, and that result is pretty stunning. But the ultimate test, the one that really matters, is how a product performs out there on the road, year after year, mile after punishing mile. So let's look at the proof that comes from decades of real-world use.
Yeah, this isn't some new, unproven product that just hit the market. We found testimonials from people who have been relying on this stuff for over 35 years. You've got guys like Graham, who started back in '83, and Mario, a mechanic who's been putting it in his customers' cars since 1987. I mean, that kind of loyalty, that speaks volumes. And a lot of that trust is forged in these extreme worst-case scenarios. Take this story from Lance over in New Zealand. His radiator failed and his engine overheated deep into the red, not once, but 5 times. He was absolutely convinced that the only reason his engine wasn't a cooked and useless piece of metal was because of the MBL8 he had in the oil. And as you go through decades of reviews, you start to see this really clear pattern of benefits. People are constantly talking about quieter, smoother engines, better fuel economy, and using less oil. But the stories that really stand out are the ones about surviving things that should have been catastrophic, like a total loss of oil or coolant, events that should have just destroyed the engine.
How's this for extending component life? 1.3 million kilometers. That is what a trucker named Jonathan Robury has on the original motor of his Volvo Prime Mover. He credits MBL8 in every single oil change. For a professional driver where your truck is your livelihood, that's not just impressive, that is money directly back in your pocket. And here's what's so incredible.
This is where the real-world proof connects right back to the science we talked about. This is a quote from Mike, an A-grade mechanic. He tore down an engine that had been running on MBL8, and he was just stunned. He said the worn parts, the bearings and cylinder bores, looked like they had rebuilt themselves with a copper-like surface. That's it. That is a physical, visible example of that plating action we saw back on slide 7.
So it's pretty clear this is a seriously powerful, professional-grade product. And that means using it correctly is absolutely key to getting these kinds of amazing results. So let's walk through the proper way to apply it.
First up, this is what you're looking for. MBL8 comes in a couple of different sizes, a smaller 250 ml bottle, which is great for cars, and then all the way up to a big 5-liter container for heavy trucks, workshops, and big industrial jobs.
Now, the process is really specific, and for good reason. Because of those metal particles, you have to shake the bottle, and I mean shake it vigorously. The best way to do it is to mix your dose of MBL8 with the last liter of fresh oil before you pour it into the engine. Then, as soon as it's in, you need to start the engine and let it run for at least 15 to 30 minutes to make sure it circulates everywhere it needs to go. What's great is how versatile it is. You can use it in petrol and diesel engines, manual gearboxes, differentials, even hydraulics. But, and this is a big one, if you have a brand new or a reconditioned engine, you have to wait. Let it complete its break-in period, about 5,000 kilometers, before you add MBL8. And always, always follow the dosage instructions. More is not better here.
Okay, just as important as knowing where to use it is knowing where you absolutely should not use it. Remember, this product is designed to eliminate friction, which means you have to avoid any system that actually needs friction to work properly.
And this slide spells it out perfectly. Do not, under any circumstances, use MBL8 in an automatic transmission, or a limited slip differential, or any kind of wet clutch or wet brake system. All of those components rely on friction to function, and since MBL8 is designed to get rid of friction, putting it in there will cause some very serious, very expensive problems.
So when you look at everything, the science behind it, the hard data from the lab tests, and of course decades of real-world stories, it's pretty compelling. From the person just driving to work every day to the trucker with over 1 million kilometers on their rig, the evidence all points to this unique metal-based formula, providing a level of protection that goes way beyond what conventional oil can do alone, which really just leaves you with one question to think about for your own vehicle.